Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Ankerstar Wealth Market Update. I'm your host, Allison Ankerstar, and today we'll be talking about last week's stock market bounce and how Roe v. Wade reversal may affect the midterm elections. But before we begin, as a reminder, this financial education presentation should not be construed as personal financial advice. Full disclaimer information is available at ankerstarwealth.com. Good morning, Steve. The market last week had the best week since April of 2020. Does that mark the market bottom, or are we still in the bathtub?
Hey, good morning, everybody. As you can see, we're on the road again this week. We're at nationals. If you follow my daughters at all, both played volleyball, and the youngest one qualified this year for nationals. And we're in Indianapolis for the week. So pretty exciting times. Her team's in the top 36 in the nation, competing in the open division, which it's no small feat just to qualify. And they're going to duke it out. They've got the #1 seed coming up here in about an hour. So excellent times as a parent and as a learning experience for young adults, for sure. But back to your question, Allison, we had a great week last week. I was going to recover some numbers here. I have them off to the side on my phone. So the NASDAQ, increased 7.5%. And that was a short week last week. It was only 4 days due to Juneteenth holiday on Monday. And, 6.5% for the S&P and over 5% for the Dow. So the question always becomes, so where are we in relation to the bear market? Well, once you enter a bear market, you are in the bear market until you achieve new highs. So we were down, S&P was down below 20%. It has to gain all of that back in order to be able for the bear to be over. So trust me, the bear market will seem like it's over well before it's actually over. You have to have that new high to break it. And we covered last week, average bear market duration, how the second half of the year performs when the first half of the year was, okay, call it what it is, terrible, right? So that's what we have going on in the markets. I'm going to show you a chart here, though. It'll help you kind of understand where exactly we are and address Allison's question. This is the NASDAQ that we're looking at. Make sure, let's look at, 6-month chart. Where are we? Is the bottom in? I think so, but here's the thing. When you go to invest through these things, unless it's a sharp drop and a V-shaped recovery like COVID was, things just fell off, the world was ending, right? Here it kind of, people were talking about the world ending, but really the world's not ending. Just people are getting all emotional, right? So that's why I said we're in this bathtub. And I still do, ultimately, to answer your question, Allison, I really do think we are still in this bathtub. I love this move up, but let's go back to, we had this move up at the end of May, didn't hold. We had this move up here in March and it didn't hold. We even had this move up at the end of January and it didn't hold. So just because things look good, it's called recency bias or interim bias, which is where you look at the last point of a chart and you think this will last forever. I'm under no illusion that this is going to last forever. I do think that the biggest issue on the horizon, I think inflation will eventually start to get curbed. I think the Fed's doing the right things. The Ukraine-Russia war, Russia's about, at least the headlines say they're going to default on a bunch of debt coming up on July 1st. That's not going to bode well for them. So maybe that thing wraps up. But really the gorilla in the room, if you will, is going to be the midterm elections and what's going to happen there. So overall, you can invest here. You're going to be happy you did in a year, but I can't guarantee you that money you invest today isn't going to be lower, by this coming Friday.
Last, how will the Supreme Court's reversal of Roe v. Wade affect the midterm elections and therefore the stock market?
Well, this is obviously a hot button issue, and to make sure that this is not a political statement, what I'm about to say. It's simply, how do I view this in relation to the midterm elections and in relation to the stock market, which is, again, what I'm getting paid to talk about all day in and day out, right? So obviously, this was a huge reversal. It was somewhat leaked that this was coming. I've heard some different theories that might have been intentional because it would have been too much of a shock if it wasn't leaked. But then there's other people like, how can something like this be leaked? But either way, the decisions out there, obviously protests went around all weekend. And, there's a couple schools. Everybody is either, everybody has their opinion on this issue, obviously. You can look at it from a women's right perspective and the facts that we've repealed, 50 years of women's rights. I'm kind of in that camp. But it is what it is. And I personally think that this will get relooked. It will probably get protested heavily, possibly the biggest protest of our time. However, we'll see. We shall really see. When you look at the folks on the other side are saying, well, this is really, so that would obviously favor the Democrats in the election, is why I bring that up. So, I saw a post this morning that said, why would any female ever vote Republican again? Okay, that's one side of it, obviously. However, if you view it from the size of government, Republicans view this as well, it's not making it illegal, it's simply moving it down to the state level, which is now a big government shift to a smaller government, which I fully support the theory of less big government, more states' rights, more state government sort of thing. So then people are like, well, this is forecasting that November will be a huge Republican wave, if you will, of elections, because they're looking at taking bigger government and less government, if you will. So how do I think it'll play out? Well, I certainly think that it's going to take what it was already going to be, a crazy election and make this completely the issue. I think it's going to completely be the issue all the way up through the election. It'll override inflation. It'll override, any war that's going on. I think it will be the topic going through. And it'll be about, obviously the Democrats will say it's the Republicans taking rights away from women, and the Republicans will say, well, it's just small government because it just moved the decision down to the state level. Ugly issue going into the election. So how does that parlay to the markets? Well, that's going to bring now uncertainty kind of back into it. Had this not happened, I was completely certain it was going to be a Republican victory across the board for the most part in November. Now I don't know. And there's going to be a lot really to watch how the protests are handled. How, do they increase? Do they decrease? What are people saying, for the next 5 months as we go into this election? So certainly kind of an just ugly thing to have crop up when we already had lots of ugly things we were dealing with. It just brings uncertainty back into the market. The futures are up this morning, so I don't think the future, the stock market's not tied to the decision, of course, but I think the stock market does in some certain extent reflect the overall optimism for the future of the country. And I know that, seemingly half, if not more, of the population feels like this was a big, huge step in the wrong direction, which is unfortunate. So more to follow, I guess, is the official answer to your question, Allison, is that there's a lot of things that are going to have to be kind of talked about before we know how the elections are going to end up being in November.
Thank you, everyone, for your questions. Please submit your questions as a comment through social media or directly to our email at vipservices@ankerstarwealth.com. And don't forget to like and subscribe to get daily updates. That's all we have for today's show. I'm Allison Ankerstar, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.